Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We start tonight hearing from the parents of Ashlee Shingoose as the news of identifying Mashkode Bizhiki'ikwe continues to travel across Indian country. They spoke in front of the press today for the first time, along with the Assembly of First Nations and the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley and a warning this may be hard to hear for some of our audience.
An embrace between mothers. Ashlee Shingoose takes the time to hug both the APTN National Chief and the AMC Grand Chief moments before she takes to the podium to speak about her daughter, Ashlee Shingoose.
She was so good. Even when I talked to her, she would never talk back to me.
On Wednesday, the Winnipeg Police Service told the public Ashlee was identified as Mashkode Bizhiki'ikwe, or Buffalo Woman, and they believe her remains are in the city-owned Brady landfill south of Winnipeg. Rebecca Comtois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Ashlee were brutally murdered by a serial killer in spring 2022. On Tuesday, in their home in St. Teresa Point, the Shingoose family were paid a visit by WPS to share the news. Ashlee's father, Albert Shingoose, says it came as a surprise. He thought it was the service routine trip to assure them they were still looking for Ashlee. Instead, they said,
"We know where Ashlee is. My wife and I, we looked at each other and we cried."
Ashlee was last seen on March 11, 2022 in the downtown core near a shelter. For 3 years, Albert would come to the city and walk the streets searching for his daughter. Teresa stayed home to watch Ashlee's children.
It was really hard. But I prayed.
At the same time, the families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron were fighting to search a privately owned landfill north of the city for their loved ones' remains. While the WPS knew they ended up there, they said the search was not feasible. As well, the former Manitoba PC government chose to stand firm to not search, even making it the center of their campaign. Then, when the NDP took power in fall 2023, they made the commitment for a humanitarian search. That search began in December 2024, and in less than 3 months, remains of Harris and Myron have been recovered. The search at the Prairie Green still continues now, even as talks about a new search will begin at the city-owned Brady landfill for Ashlee.
I need your voices. Speak up. Let's get the landfill going.
This time around, there is full support for a search of the second landfill, something AMC Grand Chief Kyra Wilson applauds.
I just also want to say thank you to Premier Wabkanu, Mayor Gillingham, and Police Chief Jean Bowers, for your commitment to search the landfill.
While talk of reconciliation is front and center this week, APTN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak took the time to remind the government of a July 2024 APTN unanimous resolution for an inquiry into all 4 murders.
We need to look at that as a society, my friends. All of us have to look at that and ask why. Why did it take so long? Why did there have to be such a push? And so we call for an inquiry into that.
A push for justice that many continue to advocate for, alongside the families of the 4 First Nations women who lost their lives way too soon. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And if you're affected by these stories, supports are available 24/7 through the MMIWG support line. And that number is 1-844-413-6649. To the election campaign now, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre made a stop near Vancouver today and announced his plan to strengthen the economy if elected as the next Prime Minister. Poilievre says that if he gets elected, he will create strategies to combat tariffs being imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump and strengthen Canada's economy, but no mention of any specific Indigenous-related issues.
As Prime Minister, I will bring home the Canada First TFSA top-up. Here's how it works. The previous Conservative government created the tax-free savings accounts that allow you to put aside up to $7,000 every single year. And then your growth is all tax-free. That won't change. What will change is that under my government, you will be allowed to contribute another $5,000 every single year, as long as that money is invested in Canadian companies. So this will bring billions of dollars of investment.
2025 marks the 140th anniversary of the Northwest Resistance. The Canadian Armed Forces, RCMP, Métis Nation Saskatchewan, Beardies and Okimausis Cree Nation organized an event to honor the lives lost in the battle. Video journalist Rachel May was at the event.
Because when we work together, families are stronger, small communities are stronger, big communities, cities are stronger, our provinces become stronger, and Canada wins.
The end of March 1885 marked the start of the Northwest Resistance with the Battle of Duck Lake. The conflict began when RCMP and volunteers from Prince Albert attacked the Métis First Nation people in Duck Lake. The site where the battle took place is located on the land of the Beardies and Okimausis Cree Nation. 5 Métis men and 12 RCMP members and volunteers died in the battle. It moved on to Fish Creek and finally Batoche in early May. Métis Nation Saskatchewan President Glenn McCallum highlighted the importance of uniting Indigenous people, RCMP, and the Canadian Armed Forces to prevent the events of 1885 from repeating.
And if we don't recognize to be able to think outside the box, no matter how much we talk to one another, if we don't change our ways, we're not going to be complementary to one another in regards to how we can better address the issues that we face today.
RCMP attended the event to honor the lives lost on both sides of the conflict. Saskatchewan RCMP Commanding Officer Rhonda Blackmore stressed the importance of acknowledging dark historical events to prevent them from repeating.
It's also, we need to talk about reconciliation, because now we need to stop talking. That's great that we have a plan, but we need to take action. We need to be seen to following up on what we're talking about and making sure we're implementing. It's not just about showing up, it's about showing up and listening and hearing and acting based on what we're hearing. And so that's what's important to me. And
Captain Trent Gervais, Bold Eagle Coordinator for the 3rd Canadian Division Training Centre, was one of the representees for the Canadian Armed Forces. Gervais said that being at a historical site, sharing stories from all sides of the conflict, and coming together to promote a future of cooperation between Indigenous people, RCMP, and the armed forces is a true act of reconciliation.
This is the actual site where the battle took place 140 years ago today. So it's hallowed ground for everyone here. It's a very sacred memorial for all of us. And so to be here today to commemorate the fallen on all sides of the conflict is really an important thing for us. And again, in terms of reconciliation, this is one way for us to come together as Canadians, as members of Indigenous communities, and to commemorate and honor our fallen.
Rachel May, APTN National News, Beardies and Okimausis Cree Nation.
A First Nation chief in northern Manitoba says a new gold mine slated to open on their traditional territory is historic. The Lynn Lake Gold Project is the first new mine to open in the province in more than 15 years. The mine's groundbreaking event earlier this week, Marcel Colombe First Nation Chief Delia Hart says this is the first time her nation has been involved in a mining project since the industry came to their traditional lands, located 800 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. They signed an impact benefit agreement with Alamos Gold, who's leading the project, to share revenue and provide mining jobs to surrounding communities with a higher local first policy. The mine is projected to generate more than 600 jobs during its construction and approximately 450 jobs during its operation. It is expected to operate for 27 years, and 3.3 million ounces of gold are expected to be extracted from the area, according to exploration reports.
The future looks promising for our young people, and we did a tremendous job in negotiating.
We're very happy that within 18 months of taking office, we're able to see our first mining project get the shovels in the ground. And mining is going to be an important part of Manitoba's economy for decades to come. especially when we see what's happening right now with the Trump administration in the States. For us to be able to build up our economy here in Manitoba, it's a major, major priority.
Our Truth in Politics panel is coming up to discuss the identification of Ashlee Shingoose. But as we go to break, a look at something we have coming up for you.
I'm Annette Francis in Maniwaki, Quebec. I'll be speaking with an ex-chief of Kitigan-Zibi First Nation who's now a candidate in the federal election. I'll have that story in the coming days.
Welcome back. As we've been reporting, the identity of Mashkode Bizhiki'ikwe, or Buffalo Woman, has been revealed more than 3 years after she was murdered by a Winnipeg serial killer. Ashlee Shingoose's remains are believed to be in the Brady Road landfill south of the city. Manitoba Premier Wabkanu has already committed to the family that a search will happen there. For more on this, our Truth in Politics panel is here. Jennifer Leywitz is the CEO of Pasqua Harbor Strategies. And helping us out this week is Sheila North, the Executive Director of External Indigenous Relations at the University of Winnipeg. Jennifer, Sheila, thanks for being with us. Sheila, appreciate you taking some time for us this week. And I guess for starters, just your reaction to Winnipeg police finally identifying Mashkode Bizhiki'ikwe, or Buffalo Woman.
It was definitely a very sad day, and my heart goes out to the family and community and friends of Ashlee Shingoose. It seems like that we've been waiting for this answer for a long time, but when we finally get it, it's not an easy thing to think about and to process, and I can't imagine what it's like for the family and the friends and the community. But I'm glad it's happened. I'm glad she's named. I'm glad we know who she is. And I'm glad leaders and community and allies and everyone never stopped finding answers for who this person is. And now we know Ashlee Shingoose, and I'm glad that she's going to be going home with her family.
Jennifer, unlike last time, there was an immediate pledge from Premier Wab Kinew that a search for Ashlee Shingoose will happen at the Brady Road landfill south of the city of Winnipeg. Police and the city of Winnipeg also seem to be changing their tune on a search happening this time. Your thoughts on those developments?
Yeah, Premier Wab Kinew seems to be getting a little bit more comfortable in his role, especially as it comes to these advocacy pieces, because really during the last election in Manitoba, when this was such a contentious and front-facing issue, and we were actually seeing the PC party in Manitoba campaigning on not searching the landfill, I can imagine that, behind the scenes, this might have been causing a little bit of uncertainty for Premier Wab Kinew, because it was a big task to take on. It was, an issue he had to put faith into, that it was going to turn out to be the right thing to do. But what would have happened if they would have, poured all these money and resources into this search, and he might have ended up coming up saying, hey, I'm sorry, we at least tried. But now he's been, almost a little bit vindicated, and so has the late Grand Chief Kathy Merrick, in their advocacy and the fact that they were right. They were right all along. And they did the right thing, and now these families are getting a little bit of closure that they deserve, because we had leaders that were not scared to advocate for what the right thing was to do. And I'm glad to see Wab Kinew now standing a little bit taller and a little bit more firm in the fact that he is full support behind this humanitarian search and what it means to find her remains. And I think we all need to wrap our arms around him, especially in his advocacy for getting this done, and also holding the people accountable that didn't want to get it done.
Sheila, as a longtime journalist and former Grand Chief, unfortunately, you've been in a lot of these press conferences about missing or murdered Indigenous women. Did anything from yesterday's press conference stand out for you? There was a lot of talk about learning from the past and finding a new path forward.
I have to say it was refreshing to hear the Winnipeg Police talk the way they did, and we know this because we have now a new Winnipeg Police Chief, and I believe he is the right person for this time, and he knows the value of what it's like to embrace reconciliation, and he's walking and talking in it. Let's see how it goes in the next few years, but for this important moment, I'm glad that he's there and that they're there and that they're willing to say that they were wrong and start to look at a different process and a different relationship and strengthening that relationship. And I also have to credit a lot of the community that was there. It was of course a press event, which usually means it's the media who should be in the audience, but community immerses itself in these situations these days, and I'm glad they do, because they're making real change and real impacts, and we saw their efforts and their abilities in making those camps, like a lot of the warriors that never gave up, and we're seeing what that can do when our people join together and move mountains.
Yeah, it seemed really different there yesterday, not to mention that the Premier sang, which is something you're not going to see too often. At least we do now. But Jennifer, still renewed calls this week to hold a public inquiry still into how Winnipeg Police and the former PC government handled this all. Do you think that should still move forward, still happen?
Absolutely. I think right now we need to not lose sight of the victims, their families, and also still the humanitarian search for Ashlee Shingoose. I think that's, should be top priority of everything. But also I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of the victim's family or friends or anything like that, but I think that this would absolutely bring also some closure, is figuring out the process behind the scenes and the decisions that were made. And if there's people or these institutions that need to be held accountable, that they're held accountable, but also we take the findings in those reports and utilize it to actually see authentic change, not just a report that's going to be put on a shelf somewhere, but what are you actually going to do differently to make sure that women are protected and, you know, our relatives are protected. And I know my chief made a comment last week about this might include some changes to policy around landfills, especially when, you know, monsters out there like this are seeing how much advocacy needed to go into actually just searching these landfills. What is that telling other people out there that might be preying on our most vulnerable? So this might include some changes even with municipalities and how landfills are operated.
Jennifer, Sheila, we'll leave it there. Of course, we're going to continue the conversation over on the podcast, but thanks to you both.
You're welcome, Jose.
Thank you.
Nation to Nation is coming up right here after the news. After the break, we'll have a preview of that and the new episode of APTN Investigates. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Spring is in the air, not here, but for some parts of Canada, and squirrels are out and about. Jenna Presley got this close-up shot of a furry little critter at a park in Winnipeg. Won't see those for a couple days. Thanks, Jenna. If you have a picture to share, send your photos to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, +5 with snow in Halifax, 6 with snow in Fredericton. Flurries and 9 below in Kuujjuaq, -7 in Nain. +3 in Montreal, cloudy and -5 in Val-d'Or. -1 with snow in Sault Ste. Marie, flurries and 5 below in North Bay. Snow and -1 in Thunder Bay, -3 with snow in Sioux Lookout. In northern Manitoba, sunny and -20 in Churchill, -8 in God's Lake. 2 below with snow in Winnipeg, -6 with flurries in Dauphin. -5 and snow in Regina, 6 below with snow in North Battleford. -10 in La Ronge, 7 below in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, sun's out and -5 in High Level, 2 below with snow in Peace River. -4 and flurries in Edmonton. Snow and -2 in Lethbridge. 9 above in Vancouver, 12 in Victoria and Kamloops. +2 with snow in Prince George, 4 in Smithers and Dease Lake. -11 in Old Crow, 2 above in Whitehorse. -15 in Yellowknife, -12 in Norman Wells. 21 below in Sax Harbor, cloudy, and -17 in Fort McPherson. -27 in Chesterfield and Whale Cove. -26 in Resolute, 30 below in Joe Haven. Time to head over to our Ottawa studio now, where Fraser Needham is standing by with a look at tonight's Nation to Nation.
Coming up after the news, Canadian voters go to the polls on April 28th. Pam Palmer of Toronto Metropolitan University is here to tell us how the campaign may play out for Indigenous voters. There are a number of initiatives in this election targeted at Indigenous voters. Susan Trozian of Elections Canada drops by to tell us what they are. And veteran Anishinaabe journalist Duncan McHugh is also here to tell us about a new certificate program in Indigenous journalism at Carleton University. All this ahead in just a matter of minutes on Nation to Nation.
Thanks, Fraser. Indigenous police services across the country are battling soaring crime rates, a worsening drug crisis, and a funding model that doesn't recognize them as essential. Coming up this week on part 2 of a special 3-part series, Inside Policing, APTN Investigates heads to the front lines to find out the true cost of underfunding First Nations policing in Canada. Here's a preview.
In Ontario, the Anishinaabe Police Service, or APS, polices 16 First Nations. Some detachments serve multiple communities. Until recently, the APS detachment serving Netamazaga-Beg Nishnabeg was based in a different community, about 75 kilometers away, meaning it could take 45 minutes or more to respond to emergency calls here. And there have been many.
I absolutely understand why people are frustrated. I mean, there has not been enough police presence in this community.
2024 saw stabbings, home invasions, and out-of-town drug dealers moving into the territory. In November, the Band Council declared a state of emergency because of organized crime, addiction, and violence. Hence, the rush to move a detachment into the community.
You know, I don't feel like we are adequately serving our communities because we don't have enough bodies to work 24/7. It's not fair to the communities that we police, and it's not fair to the officers.
Duncan hopes to be part of the solution here. For almost 7 years, she has been patrolling with APS. But this is one of her first overnight shifts in Netamazaga-Beg Nishnabeg. She knows she'll mostly be meeting people in less than ideal circumstances. One of the night's first calls, a next of kin notification.
We're really sorry for your loss, okay? But we have some details to share with you.
Out of respect for the family, APTN Investigates did not film this interaction.
Are you here by yourself? Do you need victim services or anything?
And you can catch APTN Investigates Inside Policing, Essential Service, airing this Saturday on APTN. And we'll speak with Tom Fenario about that documentary here tomorrow night. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. For more, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Stick around. Fraser's up next with Nation to Nation. Have a great night.